Off-season outlook time, and we're taking an off-season outlook at the New York Islanders. The Islanders are an interesting team because what are they right now? Like going into the break, they looked like they could fall right out of the playoffs, and they didn't look like much of a threat when it came to the goal scoring side of things. There were a lot of issues going on with the New York Islanders. So the reality is that their overall numbers aren't bad. 35, I should say, 23 and 10. 80 points this season. And of course, that's cut off. 48, 27, and 7 for 103 points last year, which was a bit of a surprise after a 35, 37, and 10 record with 80 points the year before. And then, of course, Tavares left, but Garth Snow gets fired, billboards work, and then in comes Lou Lamoriello, and things kind of sort of turn around. So the New York Islanders are an interesting case because they don't have, I mean, they have cap space. They're at 71.4 million going into next year, but some of that's going to get eaten up by a pretty prominent restricted free agent named Matthew Barzal. Now, the sooner that Lou Lamoriello can work out a deal with them, the better. The problem is we don't know what's going to happen with the cap. We don't know what's going to happen with it this coming season. We don't know what's going to happen with what's left of what's been cut off with this break. And so we have no idea how much money he can afford to offer Barzal because we don't know where the salary cap's going to end up. Again, I think you just adjust all the salaries down, but that's just me. That may very well not be the way that the NHL goes. And again, when you look at compliance buyouts and everything, I think NHLPA would probably not want to see a bunch of players end up out of work coming out of this. So, and that's kind of how compliance buyouts work, and they just get kind of messy. So I would think just adjusting everybody's salaries down. But you know what? Whatever they do, you can't offer Barzal. Now, here's the other problem. Pulock and Taves are both restricted free agents, and they have arbitration rights. Pulock's going to get a raise. Taves is going to get a raise. Pulock is one of the most underrated defensemen. When I did a redraft, and I had Pulock kind of high in my redraft, it showed me how many people don't realize how good of a defenseman Ryan Pulock is. The combination in New York of Pulock and Pelech, the fact that Pelech gets hurt, that's a big part of why things kind of started to fall apart with the Islanders, because they are pillars on that blue line. And when you lose them, one of them, it really, really hurts. Pulock is fantastic. I like him a lot. I like his all-around game. He's going to cost them a lot of money. You have to think Pulock and Barzal combined, and then you add in Taves, whatever he gets. That'll take care of whatever salary cap space they have. That'll be pretty much it. Which means for Martin, unless he's willing to stay for less money, he's probably out. Brassard may very well find himself on the outs as well. Kuhnhackl, probably not coming back. Andy Green could be a pure rental. And Greiss, who's making $3.3 million. Again, unless he's willing to come back for less money. And it's possible he would be. For the New York Islanders, the picture is kind of a little shaky there. So when we look at the best contracts and the worst contracts, for me, the best contract, and I had to go back and forth over this a few times. Now, I kind of wanted to put Pajot's up there, but I'm going to put up Varlamov's. At he's making $5 million until 2023, so for 3 more years. Considering how well he played this year, he had a bounce-back year from last year in Colorado. Pretty decent numbers all around, and he's shown that he can split time. He can still be a starter in the NHL, and he doesn't hurt you if you want to make the playoffs. So that's important. Varlamov, I think, was pretty solid. Good middle of the road. Not great, not Vezina level, but a good middle of the road goaltender. Worst contract, I have to go with Andrew Ladd, whose $5.5 million is included in there. So obviously when Ladd goes, that'll help them out a bit. But still, we don't know what's going to happen with the cap and who takes Ladd's contract. You can only bury a certain portion in the minors. The rest will still count against your cap hit. So the Islanders might be a team that say, that compliance buyout, come on, Ladd, we could do this. And of course, in Vancouver, fans are salivating at the idea of a compliance buyout on Louis Eriksson. And if you had 2 of them, then you can somehow do something with Luongo's cap recapture and maybe something with that. I don't think so. I don't think the NHL would allow the cap recapture to disappear, but that's just me. Andrew Ladd, it does stand out that for 3 more years he makes $500,000 more than Varlamov. So either he comes up and he starts playing again and he plays well and he makes you forget about the fact he makes $5.5 million and he earns it, or we see something else happen. He may very well end up in the minors. Going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Now, with Rookie Watch, I have to mention, before that, you'll notice yesterday I had Elias Anderson on the board for the Rangers. Today I have Josh Ho-Sang for the Islanders. Yeah, Ho-Sang is in limbo. So right now we're all doing the social distancing thing and we're all at home. Ho-Sang was separated from his team months before social distancing became the norm. Lou Lamoriello was way ahead of the curve. Like, all right, we want you to stay home. What he was told to do. And then eventually, okay, now report to Bridgeport, I guess, months later. And so, predicting the future right there. But Ho-Sang, what does he do? What do they do with Ho-Sang? What's going to happen? I don't know. He doesn't have any market value right now. He has none. And yeah, this is where we're at, and he's still technically Islander property, probably until the offseason, and in some way, shape, or form or another, he won't be Islander property anymore. I don't know what happens with Ho-Sang. Is he an NHL player? We still don't know the answer to that question yet. There are still people who say, hey, in the right organization, treated properly, he'll be an NHL player. And there are others who will say, hey, if he's not motivated to get better, if he's going to whine and complain, whatever the perception is, Ho-Sang is still, yeah, he's still on the outs. Now, Rookie Watch gets interesting because, as I mentioned, due to cap issues, if Ladd's contract's still on the books and all that other wonderful stuff, and if they're not able to keep these guys, this is where roster spots, I should say, open up. Oliver Wahlstrom, bit of a shaky first year as a pro, has led some people already say, well, I guess he's a flop. Okay, let's just hold off. So I'll take a deep breath and hold off on calling guys a bust after year one, because you look kind of silly when guys aren't a bust after year one. I like Wahlstrom, I still do. I think he'll be okay. Yes, he had a struggle his first year in pro. He's not the first one to do that. Kiefer Bellows. I liked him in his call-up. I don't know that he ever reaches the heights of Brian Bellows, his dad, but you know what? Because I cheered for his dad, I'll cheer for this kid too. I hope he does well. Bodie Wild may very well be a wild card for the New York Islanders going forward. He has his entry-level contract in hand. Does he make the team out of camp? That's a question that, if he can, it definitely helps with the salary cap. If Wild's in the top 6 defensemen, that helps. Especially when you consider Pulock and Taves are likely to make a lot of money. Maybe they dump off Boychuk. We're talking about worst contract. I had thought about Boychuk's just because of his age and the fact that he's got a few years, including this one still left at $6 million. It's a tough call. There are a few contracts in New York that you could probably narrow in on it or zero in on and say, you know what, they need to get rid of these ones. It's going to be interesting because Barzal's going to make a lot of money. But Bodie Wild could end up getting a spot out of all this. So if they used a compliance buyout on Boychuk and they used one on Ladd, then that opens up a spot for Wild. In theory, anyways, and opens up the cap space for them to keep everybody together. Ilya Sorokin, I have to mention him. His contract's coming up in the KHL. Now, the interesting thing is that in the most recent Hockey News Future Watch, Lamoriello basically kind of hedges, like, well, we're not going to rush him. Whenever he's ready. But the Rangers weren't going to rush Shesterkin either, and then they did because they had to because it was in his contract. But you know what? It turns out he's ready. Sorokin may be another one of those ones. And it's going to be really interesting to see Islander-Rangers battles if it's Sorokin versus Shesterkin and if they're both as good as they are supposed to be. Sorokin's numbers in the KHL have been fantastic. So there's reason to be excited if you're a Rangers fan about the future with that. And Otto Koivula. Now, what Otto Koivula, according again to Lou Lamoriello in that Future Watch issue, says he is the best prospect they have in their minor league system right now when it comes to centers. He likes him a lot. 6'4", 220 pounds, big guy. Not projecting to be a big scorer at the NHL level, but they don't all have to be big scorers, especially when you have Barry Trotz as the coach. That big body out there, and not only that, but if you're going to lose Matt Martin, Koivula can step into the system as a 6'4", 220-pounder, and he can help. So it's going to be interesting to see just how many rookies work their way into the lineup next year for the New York Islanders. This is a good phase for the Islanders. This is. I like the kids they have. I like the leadership they have with Lamoriello and with Barry Trotz. And I think there's reason to be optimistic. I know the Rangers are all excited. Flyers are all excited. Penguins fans say they're not done yet. Capitals fans are saying we're not done with this yet. Carolina, things are kind of exciting there, and Columbus has proved they're no pushovers. The Metro Division is stacked, and going into next year, I don't see any way that that doesn't become even more apparent. The other thing that's apparent, we really do have parity in the NHL. We have unprecedented parity in the National Hockey League, and the New York Islanders, thanks to some really smart moves by Lamoriello and by having Barry Trotz behind the bench, they should be in the mix next year as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below regarding the New York Islanders and their offseason, what they need to do, what needs to be fixed, and how about the fact they do kind of struggle to score goals at times. That seems to be sort of by design, but is that a design that needs to be tinkered with in the offseason or even during this downtime? Maybe they figure out some kind of a new strategy. Because the Islanders are in the mix, but they need to get over the top. They need to prove that they can advance in the playoffs beyond the second round and really, get into that conversation as a contender. And maybe one of these rookies helps them get there. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a ton right now while a lot of us are stuck at home and others are stuck at work. So whether you're stuck at home or you're stuck at work, my thoughts are with you. Stay safe. Stay home when you can. And always remember, your hands being clean goes a long way to helping out with this. Thank you guys so much for everything. I will talk to you again soon.